Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Honest Tattooer. This week, we have a great episode for you guys, and we have a very special guest. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Ben Shaw, and I want you to go ahead, just introduce yourself to the viewers, tell us how long you've been tattooing, and your mission.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys, for having me here. I do appreciate you letting me be the first one to come in virtually and navigate all the hurdles of that, because it's definitely a great message I need to share, because it's going to affect each and every one of us. My name is Ben Shaw. I've been tattooing for 23 years now. I also have owned a studio for 13, Archetype Tattoo in Albuquerque, New Mexico. For the last 10 years, though, I got involved with my state's regulations. And no one likes regulations, right? It's just one of those unnecessary evils you got to deal with at times. It's something we all deal with because we poke holes in skin. So the last 10 years, actually served on the state regulatory boards here in New Mexico. I started off on the Barbers and Cosmetology Board. I'm not sure what it's like in New York when it comes to who's regulating you guys, but it started off really wrong here in New Mexico.
Yeah.
They had the barbers and cosmetologists managing us, and that wasn't working out so well.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
So I was the only tattooer on the board filled with like a dozen barbers and cosmetologists. I mean, we never got to get anything done.
Yeah.
And all the laws and rules didn't make sense. So in 2015, went through the legislative session to create our own board. Actually rallied all the local shops in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and some adjoining cities to come together and form the Guild of Ethical Tattooists. So that was I imagine you all understand, you as tattooers know how difficult that can be sometimes to get us all to come together and work together.
Yeah.
But it was quite a feat, and it paid off, because went through a session. I lobbied a bill with the support of my community, and we created our own board. I served on that board until 2019, helping protect tattoo artists from overregulations, from providing rules and regulations that made sense. In that stance, I was like, the state is the tattoo artist, and I kind of was that in between, right? I kind of filtered through, made sure that the rules they were creating weren't crap, and then helped explain it to my peers. Always I bring that up because it's applicable to what's going on. You mentioned my message. So after the pandemic happened, something happened to the industry legislatively on a federal level. December 29th, 2022, the president signed the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act, or everyone calls it MOCRA. And it's basically a full revitalization and revamping of cosmetic rules and regulations. And tattooing is now categorized as a cosmetic procedure.
Oh, wow.
And our products are cosmetic. The definition states anything that can be sprinkled, sprayed, rubbed, applied on the body, inserted for the purpose of beautification, that's cosmetic. And we fit under that. Now, what does that mean? Oh, darn shucks, who cares? Sure, we're creating stuff that makes people look good. And the government wants to start regulating it more so. Like we were mentioning, the states regulate it intermittently. I mean, everyone knows that different states and cities regulate differently.
Right.
But the government wants to come through and scrutinize all products, all inks, all bandages, all ointments, etc. And again, I mean, there's nothing horrible about having our products being safe. The problem lies in that the government doesn't know how to. Right? We talked about how there's the government and the industry and being in between. Well, they don't have an in between right now.
Yeah.
And so the government is going to potentially regulate our products incorrectly. Are you guys familiar with what's happened in Europe? The whole ink bans and stuff like that?
Yeah, we're familiar with what's going on over in Europe to an extent. But I don't know if you want to shed some light on it. Maybe some people out there don't know exactly what's going on, how that relates to what's going on here too. If you want to make some comparisons, that'd be great.
100%. So the same thing happened in Europe, right? Their federal government, or the parliament there, wanted to specifically regulate their inks. They weren't going after all their products. They were just going after inks. But because they got no input from the industry, they didn't know how to regulate them or categorize them. Actually, they're not even regulated as a cosmetic. They've even fallen to that level. They actually regulate them like a chemical, the tattoo pigments. Now, since there was no sort of in between, right? No in between to kind of give information to their government, they reached out to an organization called REACH. And I'm going to be saying a lot of acronyms, but that's what the government loves, right?
Yeah.
That's the Registration, Evaluation, Authorization, and Restriction of Chemicals. And so they look at tattoo inks and the products within it and the ingredients in it and the pigments and such. Mm-hmm. And they look at them in a different light. They test them and they utilize them and not a subjective use of tattooing, right? So a good example is if like you take a gallon of say titanium dioxide, which is in virtually almost all colors, right? You know, if it's not a solid color, it's got some sort of titanium dioxide mixed through it. Well, if you use a copious amount of it and ingest it, it's going to make you sick, right? You know, that's just like if you drink a gallon of potassium, it will kill you. But if you inject a small amount into the dermal layer where it stays pretty inert, there's a very low risk there, right? But because they didn't have that scientific data, they're going off the gallon, right? They're going off chemical designations that don't make sense for tattooing. And actually, they were doing they were doing no human trials. Right? They were doing nothing on humans. They were using cell cultures and practicing on, birds and birds and animals. So the data that they use to regulate pigments in Europe is completely irrational, to the point where many of the specialists there that do have good information about and do understand tattoo science, you know, are objecting against this. So this creates a problem where the ingredients are super mild, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys used any of the European compliant pigments at all, or had a chance to?
I haven't no, not at all.
No. Well, I've had a chance to, and apparently a lot of the European tattooists agree with me because I've got a report from a very prominent tattoo scientist. Well, he's a scientist who focuses on tattoo pigments in Europe. We're saying there's a massive amount of illegal activity in Europe where many of the tattoo artists don't even use this compliant pigment because they don't like it. It's watered down. It's just it's not optimally used. Nothing like what we use now. Yeah, that's causing again a problem with the government. Man, they don't want to create some sort of illegal activity, and the comparison to us is we're in the same level, right? The government steps in. They want to start regulating our pigments. Mm-hmm. They want to start regulating our products, but they have no sort of feedback.
So we were just talking to one of the guys at work here, Gabe. He was saying that he knows a lot of European tattooers who come to the States and buy inks and bring them back over there just because of that reason that you were talking about. They don't like the quality of the inks that are out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, there's. I was speaking with a tattoo artist from Vienna, and he was talking about how they keep their compliant inks out, but then they keep all the non-compliant pigments in their box.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're basically working out of their box, you know?
Yeah. I had that same experience, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, there's no like inspectors being down doors and going after tattoo artists now, but he did show me that they do have, they have issued like up to 3 years in jail and like a €50,000 fine or €50,000 fine. Again, this isn't something they're really strictly enforcing, but it's one of those, like if they wanted to make an example out of somebody, they have that, that they could potentially use. And these all came into effect because the tattoo industry in Europe didn't really fight back. Now, the similarities between what happened then and here is the government wanted to regulate pigments. The parliament wanted to regulate pigments in Europe. So they created a law. And from that law, they said, okay, y'all, how are we going to regulate your pigments? And they got no feedback. So they started creating these rules like REACH.
Okay.
Well, the same thing happened in America, right? The Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act is a law. It's not like something that's potentially coming down the way or going to happen in the near future. It's happened. The president signed this law. It's something that we are all subject to.
It's in effect.
That's something that needs to be it's in effect, 100%. And when a law is created, it creates this statute. And I keep making this like foundational thing. I'm trying to make it like a floor, right? It's very vague and it's like a law that's very hard to create and very hard to change. But because it's vague, you have to create rules and regulations off of them, right? You create these rules off of these that then they can create regulations. It helps regulators understand how to utilize these statutes. And we are lucky in the sense that we know this has happened, just like the European artist knew has happened, but we know we can participate in the creation of these rules, right? We are aware and ready to participate in that. And that's where we could provide the FDA, provide the Secretary of Human Health Services with information that makes sense for tattooing and tattooers and our products. And because, like I said, they're not just going after our pigments, they're going after everything that touches the body.
I feel like, for tattooers, it's always been difficult to address things like this just because for us, like we've talked about this, we want to stay out of the radar as much as possible.
I mean, what's his name? He kept calling us pirates, right? Like, you want to be a pirate or do you want to live on,
Yeah. And too many of us, have wanted to live that pirate life where I just don't want to be involved in anything.
Ryan. Couldn't think of his name. Ryan.
But from Ryan. But at the end of the day, if you don't get involved, somebody's going to make those decisions for you. And then that's the problem that we're reaching, where people have already made some decisions and now we got to live with them. And the best thing we can do is establish some regulations that we can all agree to the benefit of our industry.
How do you get through to make these changes? Like what's the goal here? What's the
So I always start off with, I don't try to come at you with the sky's falling, but just to share with you all what's happened and what the potential risks are. We don't want to end up like Europe. But before I get to our my solutions, I do love the comment about pirates. We are, as tattooers, we always kind of akin ourselves to pirates because of the kind of that vagabond way of life, right? We want to kind of avoid and kind of be on the outskirts in the fringe society. And that stems from an older generation where we could do that, like meaning tattooers make machines, make needles, make their pigments. They could do all types of tattoos and they tattoo for their rent, utilities, trade, barter, whatnot.
Yeah.
They could truly work underground. But you two here, as well as many tattooers are very successful and affluent and very visible, have a great following on your social media, do amazing, specialized work, have all access to the amazing tools and pigments and such. I don't believe any tattooer today, besides anyone that's been tattooing 30 plus years, could go underground, could avoid it anymore, right?
Yeah.
We have to realize that you could go tattoo at your house, but it's going to affect everything you use, what you have access to, and the quality of it. And so there's, like I said, when people say, "Oh, we can always go back to going underground," I don't think that's even an option anymore. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, do we want to? Do you want to? You think clients would want to pay the prices that they pay now if they got to go to your house?
I don't want clients
to do the tattoos that you want to do. They're gonna, yeah, right. I don't want people coming to my pad, right? Yeah. and so that's where, like I said, the reason why I bring that up is because it lends us the opportunity that we've never had before. We have no way to go backwards. We have no way we can't step back. We have to move forward. And the only way we can move forward optimally is together. And we have to kind of break down these barriers of communications and as tattooers come together. And we do have some options. I've been a member of and have been sharing a lot about the APT. The APT is the Alliance of Professional Tattooists. Mm-hmm. This organization's been around since 1992. And originally they were built to help be the liaison between the government and tattoo artists. Because back then it was growing in popularity enough to where the government wanted tattoo artists to start wearing gloves, right? And have some sort of pathogens training. But again, being pirates, they were like, nah, fuck that. So the APT realized that if we don't do something, just like you said, John, if we're not stepping up and being proactive with these regulations, stuff's going to happen to us even worse, right? Things are going to happen to us that could be potentially way worse than we can imagine. So the APT stepped in and started communicating from the government to the tattoo artists through speaking in tattooer. We're able to inspire tattoo artists to follow suit to a monicum of regulations, and they truly impacted the tattoo industry to the point where they helped tattooing become legal in certain places that was illegal prior.
Yeah,
Now,
New York City became legal in like
now they've been around,
1997,
like I said.
which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, Pat Sinatra. She's one of the founding members. I mean, that was where she, one of the places she was very active in, right? It's wild to think at some point that it was so, illegal and so underground, compared to today, right? Seeing it on television and again, what studios look like. I mean, looking at your studio through your background, it's beautiful, right? It's totally a revolution of what it once was. And APT, I believe, had a real strong hand in that. Now, that was 30 years ago. And many of these tattooers, like Sean Anderson, right? He's been there since the first year. This man still tattoos 5 days a week. He still tattoos all day long, man. Still makes machines and needles and pigments and still grinds. And then on his moonlighting hours, talks with regulators, helping tattoo artists. So many of these tattooers are busy, right? We're busy. We got a very busy craft, right? Tattooing takes a lot of our time, but they're still grinding. And because of that, they haven't really adapted to much technology. I mean, have you guys heard of the APT before? I mean, is it?
I'm a member of the APT.
You're a member of the APT.
Yeah, I was on the cover of the APT newsletter back in I think 2008, 2009.
Dude, I just lost you. That's awesome, man. I'm super stoked to hear you're an APT member because so many tattooers I've met, either if they've been tattooing 15 years plus, they've heard of it, 20 years plus, maybe they remember anything under that. They're like, who? And, again, it's because of just not being able to keep up with technology. And that's, I think it's important to look at the APT because they've never gone anywhere and they've still been grinding for us. And the government sees that. The industry may not see it, but the government does. The government actually recognizes the APT as a long-standing constituent base, right? They've been a nonprofit for over 30 years, educating tattoo artists in health and safety. I mean, that's exactly what the government wants to cooperate and communicate with. Even so much so that they have a participation in another one of these fancy acronyms, AFTO, the Association of Food and Drug Officials. And in that group, there's a body art committee, which the APT does participate with. This group is the group that speaks directly to the FDA. These are the ones that are going to be able to be that in between, right? And talk about the in between. There's this group right here. Here's the industry. APT can speak to the AFTO and AFTO can talk to the FDA. So we actually have the ability to communicate to the FDA through the APT and the AFTO. Now, the FDA sees what's going on in Europe. They see that shit. They recognize that tattooers are coming all the way to America and buying shit or ordering it illegally, right? They don't want to create that here. They don't want to create a modern day, prohibition when it comes to tattoo pigments. Yeah. Because if we take away all our good shit, then we're going to start going elsewhere to get it. Like if you can't buy it from the good suppliers, then you might try and get it on Amazon, right? Then you might get counterfeit shit. Then you might get real crap, stuff that's got toxic stuff in it. We don't know, right? So the FDA recognizes that and they want to communicate. They want to work with us. The thing is, we just have to provide them the information. We can't just be like, this is what we think and just because, right? They're the government. They're going to want more stats and facts. Yeah. And they're going to want a constituent base. Right, they're going to want a strong constituent base. The APT is, we're cruising around, getting close to 400 members. I mean, that's 400 out of 30,000 tattoo artists in America. Like we need to grow this constituent base, and that's where my message is coming on, these podcasts as well as here speaking to you guys. I'm super stoked, man, that you're an APT member. That's fucking awesome. Love to get you in there too, John. And really, it's just joining forces and showing our numbers. I mean, the power of numbers is what sways anything political. Back in 2015, I mentioned the Guild of Ethical Tattooists. If I didn't have a group of tattoo artists standing up in a committee when the chair of the board asked if there was support, and it was just me, we never would have went nowhere. It was because there was this community that stood up behind me. Yeah, and that's what we need now is we need the industry to stand up behind the APT. And there's not, it's not just about just signing up, there's ways that the APT can continue to serve its mission with tattoo artists through supporting us, right? That's what the whole mission of APT is tattooers protecting tattooing, right? Working with tattoo artists. And so it's difficult to, like I was saying before, it's difficult to navigate regulations, right? It's difficult when you're like going to go to a convention or a guest spot or even just trying to move. And so we've created a platform called the Body Art Regulation Support System. This is on the Discord app. And this is just a very simple messaging group with regulations throughout the country and a way that we can communicate with each other directly and quickly. Are you guys familiar with Discord? You use it at all? I know it's kind of a gamer thing, but
yeah, we use it for Midjourney.
Yeah, it's the same here.
Oh yeah, right. Midjourney. Right?
Yeah,
perfect. We've already got the app then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you just need the app. Once you got there, it's just another group. It's called the Body Art Regulation Support System, or BARS, and it's got all the different channels for the APT, for the MOCRA, so you can read the bill yourself. It's got stuff about Europe. It's got stuff about that AFTO committee. It's got science. And then it's got a tab for each individual state. And in those each individual states, we put a link to the regulatory bodies that we have. But we're continuing to build that and grow that. That way, let's just say you guys want to, you mentioned you're going to go to a show, right? And let's just say you didn't know what you needed. You could click that tab and go there and know what's required of you. And if you're having a hard time, someone's giving the runaround, which we know sometimes happens, you can reach out to us or those who are on there and be able to give you support. So that's kind of the beauty of having this kind of Discord and this means to communicate, as well as having this organization.
From doing a lot of conventions and traveling, I see how different it is from state to state, from city to city. It's kind of crazy how much there's places where you need a license, there's places where you don't need a license at all.
Right.
So it's just kind of wild. How do we get how can you even get everybody on the same page in that sense? Or since you have so many different, city regulations and states and so many people involved.
Sometimes counties.
And sometimes counties. Oh, man.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, when I was serving with the state, I helped artists come into New Mexico. New Mexico actually has some high standards, state regulations. And a lot of people couldn't work there because they come from places without regulation, or it's subpar, right? Which is the majority of the country. And it's frustrating. It's banging your head on the wall for everyone involved. And that was one of the reasons why we started building those individual channels on the Body Art Regulation Support System, is to give you a quick reference to all those places, because it is so difficult. You're calling different places when you're about to travel, trying to figure out where you're going. Boom, you can go there and find where it is. Now, the thing is this, that changes all the time too, right? Because what happened, 1 year could have changed the next. Or like if you go to Massachusetts, because there's a Commonwealth, they have different regulations per city. I mean, like you couldn't move 5 minutes sometimes without a completely different licensure change.
That's right.
And I'll say this, man, I am not one for yes, let's all get regulated and let's, bring the government in and let's have them do everything, because I'm not about that. I have some folks that are so frustrated with the lack of regulations in the area that they wish they had more. It's like, don't wish for that. Don't wish for more governmental oversight. Wish for more education. Wish for more camaraderie and teamwork and the tattoo artists coming together and regulating ourselves. Right? Start sharing information with each other and with our communities. When you as professionals come together and speak professionally and share information with your clients and your community about, safe tattooing and professional tattooing and what to look for and such, that raises the bar on us. That's not bringing in this outside entity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the more that we want things to, we need to unify these things, the more we're trying to give control away. When I'm all about bringing the control in and let's taking control of it, right? And we do have that opportunity. Now, to speak to that point, though, there is another acronym. It's just moving away from the MOCRA and the AFTO and the BARS and all that, right? There's another one called the National Environmental Health Association, NEHA, and they have what's called the Body Art Model Code. The Body Art Model Code is a complex set of statutes that are like a template that's been worked on for over a decade. And some states are actually using pieces of it. So basically, like I mentioned, the statutes, the foundation, well, they've created a a template that someone could use. It's not in effect, right? It's not like, hey, this is what we have to use. But the NEHA, the National Environmental Health Association, is a recognized entity that the government uses for all other types of environmental health association stuff. So there is this statute that does exist. And I do sit on that board. And in a few months, I can actually participate in the editing of it. And it is basically they're building that bridge you're talking about, John. They do recognize it, right? They recognize that like it's too difficult to have different jurisdictions trying to regulate things intermittently, right? It's making it to the point where it's creating a lot of illegal activity because people are like, fuck it, I don't care. You know, it's too hard. I don't even want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So this body art model code is being looked at for future use. Now, I know I started saying like, you know, I don't want too much governmental oversight. We need to regulate ourselves, but there's going to be some, right? Yeah. We're a $1 billion industry. We tattoo millions of people. Too many people are tattooed. It's too big, right? It has to have some governmental oversight. We just want to keep it as minimal as possible. And so when I do agree, it would be great to have a basic template that all the states utilize, right? They have all like, okay, cool. It's all the same across the country. And if we can be involved with that to make it make sense for us, then again, that kind of falls in the route of more self-regulation that, hey, this industry is taking the initiative and stepping up and giving us feedback, because I'm sure you all dealt with some form of government. The government is overworked, underpaid, understaffed. They don't want to do all this. If we as an industry can unify ourselves and have a unified voice when they're starting to do anything from the rules and regulations for the new Cosmetic Regulation Act or the body art model code, that's going to affect, like how big your studio space needs to be, the type of lighting, the flooring, what sterilization procedures you must follow. I mean, what type of there was even a discussion in one of the last meetings about, do we all require biohazard waste bags in our tattoo studios? And like having those discussions.
Yeah.
And we need to be in those discussions to have the right information inserted there, because there's also be people on the other side, right? The FDA and people coming from environmental health that on the outside looking at tattooers saying like, oh yeah, no, you should have a doctor's license. You know what I mean? Like, so we need to find that common ground. And again, it's through unifying under that APT is really, I believe, our best bet, because there's nothing else that exists that's like that. There's no other tattoo organization's been around this long that has got such a track record.
So by you saying unify, are you thinking about every state, every city, every county will all follow along the same rules, or are they still going to be, each place will have their set rules that kind of have it like an umbrella? Where do you see that going?
So when I say a statute, again, that's like, it's going to be like a basic federal law, but a good analogy is like the cannabis, right? Well, no, that's not good, because actually it's different federally. It's federally legal, but some states legalize it. It's the other way around. So basically, like there's a federal umbrella, and then each individual state, county, or city will then create rules off of those statutes to fulfill their area. But the base will be the same.
Right.
And that would be so much better than no base, right? Yeah. Because right now, like I had to help my buddy. He had a shop in East Hamptons, Massachusetts, and their local public health department was trying to require them to have a 4,000 hour apprenticeship program. And during that 4,000 hours, the apprentice wasn't allowed to make any money, like, couldn't, do apprentice tattoos or whatever at some point. In other words, they were really trying to limit these people and saddle them with some crazy rules. And so I called them and asked, hey, where did you get these numbers and these rules? And they were like, well, I don't know. I did some math and I was thinking, if you take these many hours, time this, and I'm like, so you made this up? Like, you got no input from the industry? Oh, well, and through explaining who I was and the fact that my friend had somebody else from another state come in, she's like, okay, cool. And literally the next day, it was right before a rule change. They cut that down to like a third, right? Because then it was like, now they were listening to the tattooer.
Yeah.
And that's how it works, and like, it's having just like a group of people that could say, hey, Illinois, or small city in whatever, insert state, your regulations are irrational and don't make sense. And this isn't a trade organization that says this, right? Like here's thousands of artists from years of experience say this. You have to listen to it,
Yeah.
And if they don't, then we have opportunities, and then we have an organization. We can petition. We can go on the news. We can, then we have power. Otherwise, we're left to ourselves, right? And we only have so much power when we're by ourselves, right? United we stand. Divided we can't do shit.
Yeah. How do you propose that you can, or what have you already been doing to try to really connect with more tattooers and kind of like get them to want to be involved? Because ultimately that's what it is, to get people, it's like every, time that it's time to vote, there's campaigns of remember to go vote, what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you, push that message onto tattooers in our communities?
Yeah, that's the I guess that is that pirate DNA in us, right?
Man.
I want to fucking do shit. And that's the thing with technology now, you ain't got to do shit. So what is the call to action, right? What can tattoo artists do? I mean, first off, just by sharing this information on your platform and sharing it on other platforms and getting people to know that something really fucking happened, right? A law has passed. And sometimes folks don't even, tattooers don't even recognize that. It's that serious, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one strong piece of information. Something happened that's going to affect us all. No matter what we think, it's going to happen. What can we do? 2 easy steps. Join the APT, right? Take a look at their website, read information. It's a trade organization that has your back. There's no barriers to entry, right? Other than being a professional tattoo artist. And you have to be a tattoo artist too. You can become an associate. So if you have an apprentice or somebody or a client who just loves tattooing or just any sort of peripheral organization that truly supports tattoo artists, they can become an APT member because there's power in numbers. And then just to ask questions and to learn more, join the Body Art Regulation Support System. Super easy, right? Hop on there. It costs nothing. It's free. There's a lot of information, but it's broken up into chewable bits, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time? Well, there's little bites where you can start biting into it. And then once you're there, I will offer opportunities for Q&As, because trust me, I mean, there's a lot of information overload. But then there's some who really, once you start to, percolate on it and digest it, then questions will come up. Ask those questions. Yeah. And it's on that Discord we can start to answer them. And then really, it's just that mentality of coming together, realizing something happened, and joining a platform where you can communicate with us. And then, as things develop, man, I'm happy to kind of share with you guys what's happening, what we can do. Like anything, the first time we, started tattooing, it's very new and unique and we're not used to it. But the more we do something, the more we get used to it. Yeah. But because it's, being that it's online, you got to go nowhere. You don't have to spend excessive amounts of time. Like I said, you can be on this platform where there's somebody literally like, bro, I'm telling you exactly what's going to happen. Right? They're going to make it to where you can't have blue. Do you want to have blue? Okay, sign this letter or sign this petition. Boom, easy. Like it's that simple. And yeah, I mean, we're trying more presence in conventions now too. And I mean, you're hearing more about the APT. You'll hear more about us. And definitely love to have you guys on board. And definitely, anything that was just super complex and you want me to help continue to break down, I'm happy to share so you can share with your people. And yeah, I think now's the time that the industry, can truly contemplate coming together and being unified like we've never been before.
Yeah, that's great, man. The only thing that I want to ask is how much pushback are you receiving from this? Like how many people in your comments are like, fuck this guy. Like, we don't need to do this. Like they want to live that pirate life. They want to continue that. Is that something that's common? Do you see that a lot?
No. So, yeah, surprisingly, because this past 10 years being involved with regulation, I got more of that on the state level. Mm-hmm. My peers used to call me the tattoo police. Like I was doing this shit. Like I was the regulator, and little did they know I was protecting their ass. Times I swatted down crap. But surprisingly, the biggest comment is like, oh, you can't get us tattooers to work together. But I've seen it happen, and I'm seeing it happen. Yeah. There is momentum building because the tattooer today is not the tattooer of yesterday. We're not pirates. I mean, we have the pirate essence, right? Maybe us older folks maybe have some remnants of it, but now we're professional and we are innovative and we want to see tattooing flourish. We want it to be a legit career for many years to come and for future generations. So I do see a lot of people who could recognize the value in, okay, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. We're a $1 billion industry. We should be organized, It doesn't mean become corporate. That doesn't mean, like I said, the whole thing is if we can come together, then we can keep corporate out and then we can keep the government, at an arm's length, right? Mm-hmm. We can start doing it ourselves. And so as I share that message, I'm getting more and more acceptance, even from some of the old dogs,
That's awesome.
And definitely the younger generation is behind it. It's just like you said, it's an information overload. So I'm continuing to try and fine tune the message, simplify it to those three things, like something happened, come together and learn more on the body art regulation support system. Yeah. And through momentum, we could do something about this and that'll be beneficial for generations to come. Right.
Absolutely. I think that's something that definitely we can get behind and I think a lot of good can come from it if we can get on board to try to make some good things happen in our industry and not just let things just happen without any of our influence, which it's sad. And, what you mentioned earlier, one time I traveled to Spain and, I brought a bunch of inks and they were like, no, dude, you got to hide those. And man, I know that, people would build all sorts of things to hide it, tattoo inks that they like, especially really good, good ones. I wish Gabe was here because he'd be like, oh my God, if somebody tried to take my old gold ink, I'd chop off their arm.
Yeah. Ben, is there any last words that you want to let us know that you want to, where could we find you? Where can we learn more about your mission and how can everybody help?
Sure. I mean, right now the tattoo industry, Instagram seems to be our go-to, right? That's the majority of the tattoo artists use that. So, Ben Shaw Archetype is my Instagram handle. I have a link tree in my bio. I've got links to the APT, all the other podcasts I've been doing. This one will be in there as well. Mm-hmm. It's got links to the website, contact information galore in there to the APT and everything. So that's for the tattooers, that's the immediate place to go. And yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to the closing statement I always like to say is this, because I believe this rings true to a lot of tattoo artists, is tattooing has been amazing to us. Right. It's allowed us to thrive. It supports our families. And doing good tattoos and, being a badass tattoo artist and contributing that to the industry is great. But that is not us giving back to the industry. That's something the industry has given us.
Right.
And doing something like coming together and protecting it for future generation is us giving back to the industry. And I feel that it is time for us all to recognize that we want to leave the industry better than when we came to it. Absolutely. And never have we had an opportunity like this. Sometimes it takes a hurdle to cause us to rise to that occasion, but that occasion is here. And I believe we're ready to rise.
Awesome, man.
That's
great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Ben Shaw, everybody. Definitely check him out. He's helping us out. So it's worth looking into what he's got to say.
Ben, thank you so much. Hopefully one of these days we can get you live in the studio. I think it'll be a crazier conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'd love that. Yeah, no, I'm definitely down to travel. I'm just doing a lot of it. So yeah, in the future we'll do it in place in person. So
man. Awesome. Thank you so much.
I feel bad for who's got to edit. I feel bad for who's got to edit all this.
We'll make the best out of it. All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you, man.
Cool. Thank you.
So yeah, man, when when he was talking about doing like how different cities, different counties are just like all over the place, man.
It's all over the place.
Coming from Rockland, where I was tattooing before coming into New York City, there, when I first started tattooing, there were no laws, no licenses, no one gave a shit about anything.
Yeah.
When the health department came in, when the guy was opening the studio, the only thing that he cared about was there be a no smoking sign in the building.
What?
That was it.
Yeah.
And then, over a couple of years, a new like head of the health department took charge, and she was like, whoa, we need
what's happening here?
We need some real like regulations in here.
Yeah.
And she started taking classes down in North Carolina at some like, I don't even know what it was. It was some like regulation tattooing, big government stuff, right?
Yeah.
So she was taking all these classes, learning about what other cities are doing, and then she came and brought it back to New York. So we went from, or at least back to Rockland County, we went from being just anything goes, didn't matter, to one of like the strictest laws in New York. Really.
In New York.
Yeah. And it was so funny because like any tattoo shop that was already there was grandfathered in with certain things. We had to have a sink at every single station.
Yeah.
Foot powered, like you couldn't have handles on it.
Right.
Foot pedals, sinks. Everyone had to have their own there. And then the guys like one county over, who literally, like he was saying, like you can drive for like 5 minutes into next county over, nothing.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Man, that I feel like that's so, man, it's counterproductive. And it's like when you go one place and there's no laws, when you go to the next place and there's a bunch of laws, you take those as you're like, you guys are overreacting. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to downplay those laws. I feel like they seem extreme sometimes because.
And even, I mean, I thought that coming down to New York City would be pretty brutal too. Like at least you have to have a license here.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody walk in. Actually, once or twice.
Yeah, one time they came in.
Someone came in
just
here
to ask if people have their licenses.
I've been here for 6 years. That happened once.
Yeah, exactly.
Up in Rockland, dude, there were surprise inspections all the time.
That's so freaking crazy.
They came in to make sure everybody was up to date with their licenses. They went through everyone's drawers to make sure nothing was expired. They looked at all your inks, make sure none of your inks were expired. Yeah, they were on top of it.
Oh wow, they're on it. That's wild. And at the same time, really annoying.
Awesome.
Like you're like, today's the day I gotta look at all my stuff. I mean, that's heavy. I don't know. I feel like I like Ben's message, man. It's gonna be hard to get through to people.
I mean, it sounds like he's doing all right though. It sounds like people are really on board. I think as he gets on more like podcasts and more
to get more people involved about it, and us talking about it, I think it'll help.
He was just on Tattoo Guardians last week.
Cool.
So he's definitely getting his word out there.
Awesome.
Right.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us again, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Peace.